The Bucks improved to 8-0 since Khris Middleton has returned to the lineup, and they start a West Coast road trip in style, really dismantling the Blazers. This was not a game that felt all that close from the outset. Brook Lopez reached 15,000 points. Giannis was only required for 23 minutes. Damian Lillard was held in check as well. So overall, a pretty good night if you're a Bucks fan. Let's break down what happened.
You are Locked On Bucks, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Bucks. My name's Kane Pittman. You can see and hear me on this show Monday to Friday, and also find my work over at ESPN alongside me, the founder of brewhoop.com and longtime voice of the podcast, Frank Madden. As the Bucks beat the Blazers 127-108, today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code Locked On. That's prizepicks.com, promo code Locked On. We thank everyone for making Locked On Bucks your first watch or first listen of every single day. You can subscribe for free wherever you get your podcasts or on YouTube. Turn notifications on, particularly on YouTube. And make sure you comment and like the video. That's what helps us the most. And we've been having some pretty strong conversations in the YouTube channel over the last week when it comes to trade deadline, when it comes to Kyrie Irving and what went down there. So jump on YouTube and get involved because it's a whole lot of fun. I'll tell you what else is a whole lot of fun, Frank, and that's winning games of basketball. And this Bucks team continues to roll on. And I said, it wasn't that long ago, we were talking about this Bucks team and we were just like, gee, it would be nice to just have a 4-quarter game where there's really just not a lot of stress. And ultimately, you've probably got the advanced numbers there, but this felt like, particularly the defensive end, a pretty comprehensive performance. And the Blazers have been on fire offensively with Damian Lillard as well. I don't know where you want to start. Maybe you want to start with Brook Lopez. This was an aggressive offensive performance from him. He reaches 27 points, which leads the team, and went over 15,000 points, which is a lot of scoring in this league as well. And overall, just an interesting matchup for him, as I discussed with Damian Lillard and being put in those ball screen actions. But a pretty nice night for Brook Lopez to play 32 minutes, hit a milestone, and lead the team in scoring.
Yeah, it looked kind of like he was intending to just get the milestone out of the way as soon as possible. Lisa and Marcus were sort of joking about it on the broadcast, but that's obviously one of the luxuries you have with this team. Giannis was, kind of quiet, especially in the first half, in the first quarter in particular, but they really didn't need him to kind of force the issue. And Drew kind of got going more as the game went on, but Brook, I think, set the tone early. I think the only downside for Brook was there were a couple moments sort of in the middle part of the game where Damian Lillard started to attack him in the high pick and roll, sort of to come at him with a head of steam, and got to the rim a few times. And notably, the first few minutes, Dame got to the rim a couple times and missed against Brook, and didn't really seem like he had him measured fully. But yeah, Brook, I mean, when Brook Lopez outplays Damian Lillard, you're probably going to beat the Portland Trail Blazers. And Dame still got to whatever he got, 28 points, but 7 of 18 shooting, 2 of 7 from 3. One of those being a 47-foot, or not 47. I guess that would be like half, but basically just inside half court, which I think was his first game. So the guy's never not confident. But Drew Holiday, Javon Carter, I thought they did a perfectly adequate job on Dame in his 32 minutes, and looking at the stats, Portland shoots 9 out of 36 from 3. I'd say the attempt number you're fine with. Certainly the make number you're more than fine with. They only had 8 turnovers, but only 1 offensive rebound. I'm trying to remember the last time if I've ever noticed the Bucks only allowing 1 offensive rebound. That's very impressive. And again, I think we talked about they don't have a whole lot of size. Nurkic was out. Drew Eubanks was fine, but you could tell that obviously they struggled from 3, and they really couldn't kind of compensate enough in doing other things tonight. And yeah, just a pretty easy, low drama victory for the Milwaukee Bucks. And these are the kind of wins that you start, to kind of have a long win streak. You kind of need to have some wins like this, right? Some of these games where you go on the road, and not that the Blazers are world beaters or something like that, but they're a solid team. We saw the stats tonight. They've been the best offense in the league, I believe. Was it since Dame came back in December? I mean, they've been a quite good offense, quite excellent offense for quite some time. We saw Anthony Simons have a few moments where he was just in attack mode. Didn't matter who was guarding him. But overall, the Bucks, I think, just made life not so easy on Dame and the rest of the guys, and they obviously did the job defensively. And when you do the job defensively, I think everything else is a little bit easier. And Bucks weren't shooting the lights out early, but 3-point shot shooting came around 16 out of 42, and just overall balanced attack, getting Giannis in those limited minutes. Foul trouble, 24 on 14 shots. We talked about Brook with 27. Drew got up to 20, albeit on 20 shots, and just little things here and there. Pat Connaughton, Javon Carter each had 11. Khris Middleton, again, off the bench. So, not getting to any big minute totals here quite yet for Khris, but on a night like this, you also didn't really need it.
22 minutes for Khris Middleton, which is interesting. Maybe we'll discuss him a little bit more as it goes on. But you mentioned the size, and I would say a pretty common complaint we get, or I see on Twitter, or whether it's on the YouTube, is Brook Lopez not being used enough offensively. But I don't know whether Lisa said that, and Marcus said that Lisa mentioned to Brook that he was 20 points away from the 15,000. So I don't know whether we need to give Lisa the credit for this, but he definitely looked like a guy that was well aware that he had the size advantage, because it wasn't even him just blazing away from three, which is what we see at times. He was going to work, and he had 9 free throws, which I feel like would have to be relatively close to a season high as well. You don't see a lot of that from him, but overall, one of his best offensive games for the team this season for sure. We can continue to break this down. I'm going to mention our friends over at Prize Picks though first, and if you're not aware of what Prize Picks is up to, you can pick 2 to 6 players, and if they score more or less than their Prize Picks projection, you can win up to 25 times your money on any entry. If you had the over for points today, I don't know what it was for Brook Lopez, but you would have been in pretty good shape, I dare say. There's no competing against other people. It's just you versus the projections available. Prize Picks offers the projections on any sport you can think of. You can go on there and find whatever you need to find and make your entry in less than 60 seconds. It's safe and fast to use and currently operational in over 30 states and Canada. So download the Prize Picks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code Locked On. If you deposit 100, they'll give you 100. Deposit 50, you'll get 50. You get the drill. So don't forget to enter the promo code Locked On at sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100.
Brook Lopez 9 free throw attempts does tie his high from the last 2 years. He has shot 10 free throws in a game a few times since coming to Milwaukee, but you are correct. That is an abnormally high number for Brook. So, big fella getting things done. And I thought, obviously we always talk about Brook as sort of the focal point, obviously with his drop defense, but I thought, one of the really nice things about, Wes Matthews effectively coming in and, he's not like for like with Bobby Portis, obviously, but I would say in general, Wes has been sort of the big beneficiary in terms of minutes in Bobby's absence. And, we saw it from the first quarter on here. I mean, you just see a lot of lineups, especially when it's Wes out there with Drew in particular, but we saw it with him and Drew and Khris at various points, but just gives you so much flexibility when you're playing with these lineups of essentially 4 wings or 3 wings plus Drew Holiday. Drew's basically a wing defensively. The fact that, teams just run these perimeter actions and you just switch them, right? Like there's really it's not really like creating much dynamism in the half court when you're trying to attack the Bucks wings and they can all kind of hold their own, all switch. And, there's not really an easy way to create an advantage there. So shout out to Wes playing in his, probably the city where he had the most success in his career. It's kind of funny now, like the version of Wes that we've had in Milwaukee, obviously he's been a real contributor, but we saw the stats tonight. He averaged 15 points a game through 5 or 6 seasons in Portland, and obviously that tenure ended with tearing his Achilles, and arguably never the same guy after that. But tonight, nice to see him play 22 minutes, 6 points, hit a couple of threes, 4 rebounds. And again, just the fact that you've got him out there, and we talk about him being able to guard like power wings, the last possession defense he played on Kawhi on Thursday. But when he came in, he was defending Dame a fair bit, especially when Drew was out of the game tonight. So that's just kind of the luxury you have with Wes, is that you can put him on different types of players, and certainly guarding 1 through 3, even to an extent guarding 1 through 4. He's a guy just gives you a lot of flexibility from a defensive matchup perspective, and obviously it's just very different if Bobby Portis is in there, because Bobby has to defend, mostly is used like a big man, even though he obviously has some limitations, especially as a drop defender. But yeah, that's one of the, I'd say, the interesting wrinkles that we've gotten to see a lot from the Bucks of late, because they are running so many lineups where they're playing either Brook or Giannis with 4 smaller players.
It's been fascinating over the last week as we've done a couple of podcasts talking about Jay Crowder, and then I've just been having conversations with a bunch of fans in the YouTube comments about, and look, some Bucks fans are really into the idea of Crowder. Some are just like, why do you need him? But probably the biggest argument I've had is they're like, well, it's the PJ Tucker replacement. And to your point, I've been like, well, not really, because again, if, as you pointed to, when you go back and look at PJ Tucker and sometimes guarding Trae Young, sometimes guarding Devin Booker, it's not just the big guys. That's what PJ Tucker did. That's what made him versatile. Now, I'm not saying Wes Matthews is PJ Tucker, but in terms of actually mixing and matching guys that he can play on, he's a little bit more like the role that PJ played. Now, certainly, if you even go back to 6 weeks ago when Wes wasn't playing at all, and we're asking the question, is he not playing because he doesn't have any juice left, or are they resting him, or what is happening? But he certainly had a good patch here, and as we should mention, well, trade deadline's only a few days away, so we'll see what happens there. I saw a tweet from Kevin Pelton tonight, Frank, and I don't know if you saw it, and I don't know if you're going to laugh at this.
I did. I was shocked that Kevin Pelton of all people would bother tweeting that, but
I'm reading it out because what we want to do is get people excited. So he said the sample size is far less than meaningless, which I'm not sure. Anyway,
it's 50 possessions. It's not worth Kevin Pelton tweeting about, but again, you can finish it.
Yes. So small sample size, essentially. But the Bucks with Giannis, Joe Ingles, Khris Middleton on court, 100th percentile in offense and 99th percentile in defense. So obviously they haven't lost a game, I assume, or maybe for the most part they haven't lost a game with those 3. They probably haven't, actually, because I don't know whether Joe was back when Khris first returned there. So you don't even want to entertain this at all? The idea of what those lineups can do. Now, I'm not saying that the 50 possessions is something you need to entertain, but have you liked the small sample size of what you're able to see, whether it's offensively, creativity, defensively? You already spoke about the switch in and those types of things.
Yeah, the really funny part is I looked at the data that Kevin was talking about. The irony of that, the weirdest part, the first I was going to look at it and say, like, okay, is this just, teams have shot 20% from 3 in this 50 possession sample, and that's why it looks good defensively. It's actually the complete opposite. Opponents have shot 56% from 3 against that lineup in those 50 possessions. Obviously, there's nothing to draw from that. It's just, random luck. Bad luck.
That means the Bucks would be the 120th percentile if the teams weren't shooting so well from 3.
But the Bucks are 100 percentile defending the rim, so which again, it's like, are Khris Middleton and Joe Ingles contributing to great rim defense? I'd say probably not, right? So there's probably some noise in there too. But they've also shot 45% from 3. The Bucks have in those minutes. So yeah, I will not. I don't want to really read much of anything into it. I mean, I think the interesting thing to me is that, and obviously a lot of this is weighed down by Chris's earlier tenure, kind of more struggling piece of the season. But Khris and Giannis together this year are only +4 together in almost 400 possessions. So I'd say if you want to look at more robust samples of lineup data. And then they were negative for a while there. I mean, interesting, when Khris had just come back, there was a while there where it was like they were 100 percentile offense and 0 percentile defense. And again, it's like, is there a lot to read into that? Probably not, right? It's just largely a small sample, especially with Khris not being at 100% coming back from the injury yet. So, So yeah, hey, as you said, I have liked these lineups where Giannis is playing at center, or obviously always like Giannis and Brook together. But I think the forcing mechanism of Bobby being out, forcing the Bucks to play a little bit differently. I think these are looks that I fully expect they're going to have to utilize, hopefully during what we all hope will be a long playoff run, and just having that type of versatility. So getting to kind of flex some of those muscles, I think is generally a positive thing.
Yeah, and I think the big question, and we see this a lot as well, is like who is the Bucks closing lineup? I think the cool thing is that there's a couple of different options. The big question that we'll probably need to see, and it'll be interesting. The Bucks obviously play the Clippers again, although we're not sure who's going to be playing in that game. They play Boston next week, where hopefully everyone's healthy and we get a good look at it. But one of the big questions is Joe Ingles someone that you put in the closing lineup defensively? Is he a guy that is up to the task in the playoffs of being one of the closing lineup guys? Because if he is defensively, then I think you like the offensive stuff he can do. But I think there's options there. And again, they might make an addition at the trade deadline. Do we think Marjon Beauchamp's purely and simply just played tonight because he had hundreds of family members in the crowd?
Yes. I mean, Jason Kidd used to do this too. Bud does it. Like I don't mean, and I mentioned both of them because I don't think it's a very unique thing to do, but it is sort of funny that even at the NBA level, when a guy goes to his hometown or when a guy's playing against his old team, it seems like coaches are much more likely to play these sort of fringe rotation guys who might otherwise be on the outskirts of the rotation. So yeah, the fact that we saw Marjon in the first half was definitely like, interesting. And thankfully, with the game being out of hand, there was a lot of ample opportunity to give him some run in the fourth quarter in particular. And he got to see him hit a three and a nice little baseline pull up. So he knew his people were there. He was getting some shots up. So it was cool to see. They interviewed his dad, whose name is Mark, whose name is John, sorry. And he informed us, for those who weren't able to watch the Bucks broadcast, that Marjon's name is basically a combination of his dad's name, which is John Mark, and essentially they dropped the C, or I don't know if it's a K or a C, from his middle name, and took that and said, all right, Mar, put it in front of John, and that's how he became Marjon. So he's sort of named after his dad, but he's not.
And it looked like he was literally sitting right next to the bench. So it sounds like I can only assume. I mean, I would like to sit next to Thanasis for a game and just look like they were talking. I don't know what they were talking about, but it would be great stuff. So I'm sure he had a pretty enjoyable night. I've got a trade question for you, though, based on something that you just said. So I'm going to ask you this trade question after we talk about Built Bar, the best tasting bar ever been made. And if you're looking for a delicious treat but don't want all the fat and calories, then you've got to try a Built Bar. You might be asking, what makes Built Bars so good? Well, for starters, they're covered in 100% real chocolate. That's right, real chocolate. And they come in unbelievable flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, and coconut almond. I'm not really sure how they do it, but they are able to make Built Bar healthy for you. I don't get it because they taste that good. 130 calories, only 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, but a very generous 17 grams of protein. And the great news is you can go to built.com and get your order, but you don't have to do that anymore. You don't have to wait around. You want the instant gratification when you order a Built Bar. We all understand it. So you just go to Sam's Club or Walmart, pick yourself up a 13-bar box. You can also pick up a 4-bar box of cookies and cream, double chocolate, and coconut puffs. But to me, that is 4 bars. You're going to be back there tomorrow. So I would suggest the 13-bar box. So check it out at Walmart or Sam's Club. That's Built Bar. We love it. Or, of course, go to built.com. All right, Frank, there was 2 guys that got a DMP tonight. And you're telling me that Jordan Walker getting a DMP tonight has nothing to do with the trade deadline with George Hill and Serge Ibaka. You're telling me that package not getting minutes is completely inconsequential?
Yeah, because any team acquiring Jordan Wara in a package is really worried about his health, right? Like they desperately want to make sure he's healthy. And if you got an ankle injury or something tonight, there's no way that they would be able to trade him by Thursday. Yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting question. If this had not been close to Marjon's hometown, would Jordan Nwora have played? We don't know. There will not be another game prior to the trade deadline, so we may never get an answer to that question. But I don't know. We'll see. I would say there's definitely some guys on the roster that I'm not worried about getting traded, and no spite to Jordan or anything, but yeah, I'm fully on board with using him to acquire some other type of player that could potentially be of more value. So anyway, yeah, was not expecting to have a Jordan Nwora conversation, Kane, but you're just always the king of the Jordan Nwora fan club, I guess, huh?
Well, you just got to think on your feet, and when you just peruse the box score and you see something that really is just very suspicious, you got to ask the question. So that's what I did there. Trade deadline Thursday, 3 p.m. Eastern time, I believe. So I'll be up early on Friday morning. If anything happens, that's why you got to subscribe to Locked On Bucks. We'll have a podcast reaction. It's been pretty quiet, but the Kyrie trade did or was made official today, which might be the start of some further dominoes. So it's going to be fascinating. Bucks and the Lakers coming up next. That's also on Thursday. I'm curious. You think LeBron? Now, he's a very calculating man. He needs 36 points. You think he's getting them against the Thunder?
Is it in OKC or is that home?
No, it's LA, and they flipped it to national TV, so still plenty of eyes.
I mean, if I'm LeBron, I feel like you probably would want to just like get it over with as soon as possible, right? So, and the Thunder are good enough that it's not like you're gonna. I don't expect the Lakers are just gonna like win in a blowout. So yeah, it's an interesting question. I would probably say maybe he's a little more likely than not to just get it out of the way against the Thunder and kind of not extend the drama at all. But certainly, I mean, he doesn't average 36 points a game, so there's obviously a very good chance that may come early on Thursday in the Bucks game. So I don't know. We'll see. I don't particularly care that much if the record gets set against the Bucks or not. Obviously, just given where he's at, it's not like it would at this point. You would not expect it to come, during a fourth quarter or some key moment in the game or anything like that. So, but yeah, I mean, it's remarkable. I mean, he's gonna inevitably get to 40,000 points, which is just crazy that that he can get that far. So I don't know. It's going to be hard for Brook Lopez to catch him, I guess.
I did think about that tonight when they were talking about Brook on 15,000 points, just thinking that he could double that and still be about 10K short of what LeBron. I mean, it is just truly amazing. I just quickly looked up some of the numbers. So over this 8-game winning streak, and again, it's not like they've played absolute contenders, but top 10 offense, Frank, 118.1 offensive rating, and third ranked defense, 106.7, and the number one net rating. And this is actually noteworthy because you've brought it up a few times. It's just been fascinating that the Bucks point differential, and part of it is because the offense hasn't been great, but it hasn't been up around. You go back a couple of years ago and they were constantly around that 10 plus net rating, but over the last 8 games, net rating of 11.4, best in the NBA. So yeah, we've had some comfortable wins. They're now 20 games over 500, which kind of snuck up quickly. They're only a game behind the Celtics. So they're right in the mix. If you had asked me 2 weeks ago if I thought that the Bucks were going to be in the mix again for the number 1 seed before All-Star break, I would have said no. So season-long winning streak is 9. This has been nice. This has been nice to rattle off some wins, and it might be a little bit challenging here with this back-to-back with the 2 LA teams, depending on how they manage the bodies. But they're back in the mix, and hey, I didn't think they're going to get the number 1 seed. I still maybe think that they might not, but if it's right there, you would take it in a potential series with the Boston Celtics. So not too much to complain about at the moment, Frank.
Yeah, I mean, I think as far as like the point differential, the first 2 years under Bud were kind of all-time elite level point differentials. Getting into the not quite. I don't think they weren't quite at 10 points per 100 better, but getting closer to those marks, and then kind of dropping more towards like the 5-6 points per 100 positive marks the last couple years, and then this year, I think they're right around 3 or so. And you look at the numbers, and this has been the year where they've most outperformed their point differential. They're 5-0 in 3-point games. Interestingly, I was looking at the clutch stats. I was like, so are their clutch stats like really good this year because they've won these close games? They're actually not. The other day they had a negative point differential in quote unquote clutch time, which is I think what is it within, is it 4 or 5 points or something?
Yeah.
In the last 5 minutes, which is just kind of interesting, right? Like the fact that you can outperform your point differential without statistically looking like a good clutch team is very interesting to me. I think last year they were very good in the clutch in terms of those metrics. But you look at the 10-point game, like games decided by 10 points or more, they're 17-10. It's not wildly different from, Boston's 21-8. The Sixers are 17-8, so both those teams are better than them. And then the Cavs are 24-8, so the Cavs have won a lot of blowouts, but can again kind of juice the point differential numbers. So it's interesting. But the flip side is, I think one of we've talked a little bit about this stat all year, but the Bucks being 20-10 against 500 or better teams, Boston is 20-9. But other than that, those are the two best teams in the league in terms of winning percentage against 500 teams and above. They were for a while like notably worse against below 500 teams than they were against above 500 teams. Now they're 17-7. And again, a lot of this is kind of it bounces around daily just because you've got so many teams close to 500. So like teams go bounce above and below that number pretty regularly. Like
Might have lost him.
But yeah, it's been interesting in that regard, because I think especially when the Bucks were great, they made it that they just beat the crap out of really bad teams. And this year, obviously, there are
All right. His internet has not lasted. I shouldn't have asked that final question. Make sure you check out the Locked On Game to Game podcast, wherever you get your podcast. Give you a nightly recap of what's gone on around the rest of the NBA. We'll be back tomorrow, and then we're going to lead into the trade deadline, lead into the game against the Lakers. So make sure you keep your eye on the Locked On Podcast Network, particularly the Locked On Bucks feed. Subscribe if you haven't done so already. We really appreciate it. Turn notifications on because we might have a busy week. And if there's any news, you can find it with Locked On Bucks. The Bucks beat the Blazers. They're 20 games over 500. They've won 8 in a row since Khris Middleton came back. So it's happy days if you're a Bucks fan. We'll be back tomorrow. Thanks for watching.